And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today we're talking about the Washington Commanders and if they are a top five team in the NFL. Right now, we're looking at an article that is on SB Nation, and it is asking that question about the Washington Commanders being a top five team. And so I've looked at a couple different power rankings, whether it was Yahoo, NFL.com. And I can tell you just personally, as a Commanders fan, I think that, yes, the Washington Commanders are a top five team. Obviously, being a fan, that probably plays a little bit into it. But, just looking at it from just the outside looking in, the Washington Commanders have been a very convincing team as far as the way that they've won games in the NFL thus far. And I must say that I've said this a couple times on the videos that this team seems to be getting an identity. And so let's look at some of the teams that are listed ahead of the Washington Commanders. And so, this is basically off of Yahoo. They just published this one and they have ranked it into different categories. But right now, they have the Washington Commanders sitting 10th. And they are saying that you have the column, which is the contenders. You have the Kansas City Chiefs. You have the Detroit Lions, Houston Texans, Baltimore Ravens, Minnesota Vikings, Buffalo Bills, Atlanta Falcons, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which are ahead of the Washington Commanders in the contenders. And so I would say that, yeah, you could probably go ahead and say, yes, the Kansas City Chiefs should be in the contenders, even though that they have struggled a little bit offensively, but they're still the Super Bowl champs and they're playing like it. They're undefeated. Detroit Lions certainly have been a team that has played pretty well. Houston Texans as well. And I think that, going into this Baltimore Ravens game, now I think you're going to see the Washington Commanders maybe push into this column if they are able to beat a team like the Baltimore Ravens, which is a team that I feel like a lot of writers, a lot of people who are viewing this sport feel like the Baltimore Ravens really have a great chance to win an NFL championship and really make it out of the AFC, at least this year. And so I think that if the Washington Commanders certainly beat the Baltimore Ravens this upcoming week, you're going to start to see them in this contenders column. But right now I can see, the Minnesota Vikings, again, they're undefeated. They played very well. The Buffalo Bills, that's a little bit of a question mark for me in the contenders column. And so are the Atlanta Falcons as well. I mean, they have really not looked very good the last couple weeks, and the Atlanta Falcons, I don't think, has looked very good throughout the season, even though they've had some last-minute wins. I don't think that this team is a contender, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are very much a contender with Baker Mayfield, which leads you into the teams to watch out for. That's going to be the Green Bay Packers, followed by the Washington Commanders. And so I think that both of these teams are absolutely hungry. And I think that the correlation between these two teams is that you have two quarterbacks that are fairly young in the league that have had some success. Obviously, Jaden Daniels is setting records here, but you see the correlation there. Both teams like to run the football. And I think the Washington Commanders defense is actually getting a lot better, and it has the potential to really take leaps over a team like the Green Bay Packers, especially when you look at what Dan Quinn is doing. In NFL.com, they have the Washington Commanders ranked 6th. Obviously, they're talking about the fact that, yes, we do have this showdown with the Ravens, which is going to be huge for the Commanders and just showing how legit that they are. And I think that the Commanders are going to do just fine in this particular football game. And so the bottom line is they're top 5 to me because they have an identity in which it sticks in any game that you want to play. If you are a team that likes to pass the football up and down the field, well, the Washington Commanders love to pass, but more importantly, they love to set up the pass by running the ball. And if you run the ball and you run it well, like the Washington Commanders have done, they have a knack for going ahead and converting third downs. They've done a terrific job in keeping opposing offenses off the field. Like, I think that was probably the difference between the Bengals and Commanders game, keeping an elite quarterback like Joe Burrow off the field, right? Because Joe Burrow actually played pretty good in that game, but keeping him off the field, I think, allowed the Washington Commanders to win that game. So running the football has been a premium for this team in doing that. And then also, too, just the fact that they're figuring out ways to beat the defense and take off the top on those defenses. And so we're starting to see a lot more splash plays. Again, that comes from being able to run the football and then go down the field. We have a quarterback that is now eluding pressure and is starting to continue to look down the field. I think that that's something that he did in week one, just wasn't necessarily able to connect. I've talked about this before with the offense being a little bit more expanded. And perhaps it is true that teams don't actually start becoming themselves until week 4, week 5 of the NFL season because of preseason football. And so I think because we've gotten better doing that, going and attacking secondaries, and then also too, we have an identity running the football. Certainly that screams top 5 to me. Now defensively, that is probably where it's going to be the real question mark, even though I think that the Commanders have turned the page the last 2 weeks against Arizona and against Cleveland. They have done a great job as far as getting sacks, which is huge. And then they're starting to now knock the ball loose. So as those turnovers start to come, then I think you're starting to see an elite defense. And I think now then our players, coaches, and people around the league will start to look at the Commanders as a team that can absolutely be complete. And that is where you start to see those top 5 rankings and things like that. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. We're talking about power rankings. And at the end of the day, the Washington Commanders are 4-1. They're top of the NFC East. I've said this before. They look like the best team in the NFC East. And I think that the one thing that they have going for them is that the NFC East has been won by a different team, I think, each year. It hasn't had necessarily a back-to-back winner. And so I think that the Commanders have a real chance to steal this division. And I think that that lead is only going to grow more once they take on the Ravens here Sunday. I think that they can get this win going into it. At this point in time, they're playing with house money, so to speak. But the Commanders, the bottom line is making sure that they're there at the end of the season. They want to make sure that they qualify for the playoffs, put themselves in a good situation. Hopefully you get home field advantage, even though I think it's good that Jaden Daniels has shown that he can play on the road. He looks just as comfortable on the road as he does at home. So I don't think that that's going to matter. But bottom line, yes, Commanders top 5 team in the NFL. Set aside being a fan, I think that that is the honest truth here. So let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think the Washington Commanders are a top 5 team in the NFL? Or do you feel like, no, they are not a top 5 team in the NFL? Would love to hear what you guys have to say. Make sure that you continue to keep watching the videos as we talk everything Washington Commanders. We'll be breaking down the key points to the Washington Commanders versus the Baltimore Ravens coming up this week. This is your host, Rico, and you have found yourself on another episode of Washington Commanders Insider. I will see you on the next one. All right, peace.